Oh, thank you. I mean, Brian already skipped to next Sunday, so I'm assuming the applause was because I did a good job and we can just call this finished. Have a blessed Sunday. Go in peace. Thank you. Well, as he said, we are finishing this series on Proverbs, learning how to live by wisdom, to live from wisdom, to live with wisdom, to walk with wisdom. We've been getting paid by the number of times we said the word wisdom this series. It's working out well for us. But I want to start by telling you about a time that I was fundamentally lacking in wisdom and didn't realize it. So I want to show you a cover of a book that I almost didn't read. Some of you may be familiar with this. Some of you have never seen this before. This book almost didn't change my life, because when it was handed to me by the person that I now have the absolute joy of being married to, but it was handed to me while we were just starting to date, I thought I very kindly but very directly said, "Thanks, but no thanks. I'm good." I don't know. I mean, I read the jacket cover and I felt like I understood what the book was talking about, and I felt like I understood what the book was talking about, and so therefore did not need to read it. That feeling of "I already know" had been a long-standing companion in my life. It was actually something that I had fought pretty aggressively to cultivate, to be someone who already knows. Which, if you think about that just from an abstract standpoint, that's impossible. Like, you can't already know everything. But I had worked really hard to be someone who already knew. And so when I was handed this book that would actually come to change my life with God, change the way that I saw myself, change the way that I saw other people, it's honestly one of the primary reasons that I'm standing here today. I almost missed it because my first thought was, I already know. But what we're going to talk about today as we walk through this final message on Proverbs, we're going to walk through the necessity of living by wisdom, not just that we try to cultivate ourselves, but that we're willing to allow to be injected into our life by others. And so I'm very, very grateful that I was willing to allow someone who at that point in my life already had a significant place. I'm so grateful that I was willing, instead of thinking I already know, which I did to be fair, I did that for a year with that book. It sat on the shelf, collected dust. But then at some point there was a shift where I started to think, one of the people that is most important to me in this life thinks that there might be something of value in this book for me. Maybe I should listen. So I'm going to walk you through a few different Proverbs today. And to get us started, we're going to start in Proverbs 12. And then we're going to go to Proverbs 13, and then we're going to go to Proverbs 14, and then I'm going to jump to a couple other places in the scriptures. But starting in Proverbs 12, verse 15, "The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice." So I think we've pretty well covered the first part of this already. I was a fool and had been a fool for a long time, as it turns out, because I had spent a large portion of my life not only preferring my own rightness, but safeguarding it. As an act of protection, I fought to be the person that already knew. And so the space in my life that was available to even listen to advice, let alone take it, was pretty well walled off. But thanks to my wife, Brooke, and a few other people in my life, those walls have been torn down over the years, and this has become an incredible place of growth and joy and deep satisfaction for me. But it was a journey, to be sure. Now, I want to contextualize a couple of things. When the proverb talks about a fool, A fool is not an idiot. It's not someone who's just fundamentally low in intelligence. Nor is a fool someone who is uninformed. A fool is not someone who is ignorant and just doesn't know any better. The way the scriptures define that word fool, it's someone who's morally and spiritually self-confident or self-protecting. Someone who already feels like they know. Fool. It's having access to truth and yet rejecting it. It's lacking teachability. It's not being willing to submit to correction. And in some cases, this just looks like classic pride. I think I'm smarter. I think I'm the smartest person in the room. I think I'm well-read. I think I'm well-studied. I think I'm experienced. I think I have life wisdom. Thanks, but no thanks. But often what that pride is really rooted in is a version of self-protection. At least that's what it was for me. It wasn't just I need to be right because I think I'm right. But what was underneath that was I need to be right because I'm not allowed to be wrong. And without ever realizing it, for a large portion of my life, well into adulthood, that's what was driving my lack of teachability in some parts of my life. That's what was driving my having access to truth but not actually taking advantage of it. It wasn't just I thought I already knew, it's I can't afford, I can't risk being wrong and having to navigate what that might feel like. So for a long stretch of my life, I was living the way of the fool, and it was right in my own eyes. It was great. Either appreciate the sympathy of that, or that's just uncomfortable laughter for all of us. So, you are not meant to go alone. You are not meant to live this life alone. You are not meant to live this life alone. And yet, you are not just meant to walk this life with whomever. You are meant to walk with others, but who you listen to matters. Who you listen to matters. So let's flip over a chapter in Proverbs to Proverbs 13, verse 20. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. So foolishness doesn't just affect you, and wisdom doesn't just affect you. There is a communal application to either option. Wisdom will benefit others, and foolishness will affect others. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Who you listen to matters. Now, to be clear, this is about who has influence in your life, not who you interact with. Because if you're going to live in this world, you are going to interact with fools. And this isn't where we start creating, comparative categories like anybody who's not a believer is obviously foolish, so we're just going to hang out together in our little holy huddle. Or as long as I just hang out with people that are in my denominational preference, we've eliminated all the foolish people. Or pick your sports team, or pick your whatever, right? Your political organization, right? That's not the point. Because as we just established at the beginning, there are foolish people in this room that have long preferred to walk in their own way because it seemed right to them, and who were unwilling to walk in the wisdom of others, to walk with others who had wisdom. You are going to be around foolish people if you live this life that Jesus called you to, because you're going to get out into the world and be around people that are convinced that they already know what's right. And they're going to be outside the church and they're going to be inside the church. What I find interesting is that the way that the scriptures describe wisdom is not as a static quality, meaning you either have it or you don't. And if you don't have it, I mean, maybe you could get it because it sounds like the Proverbs are pointing in that direction. But once you have it, and it's yours forever. That's not actually the way the scriptures describe wisdom. The scriptures describe wisdom not as a static quality, but as a practiced, God-given skill that can grow, that can be exercised, or that can be withheld, that can wither. If you've been with us for a little while, we did a series a while back on the book of Ecclesiastes, written by Solomon. Solomon generally considered to be one of the wisest people throughout human history. And yet Solomon's wisdom was not a permanent condition for his entire life. In fact, his life seems to take this downhill slide when it comes to wisdom, where he starts doing things that he knows to be unwise. And yet he's doing it anyway. He ends his life in foolishness. He had access to the truth, and yet he rejected it. And so when we think about walking with the wise, these are not people with the permanent status of wise. These are people that are hopefully continuing to choose to grow and cultivate wisdom. So you're not meant to go alone. Who you listen to matters. How you listen matters. Let's stick with Proverbs 13:20 for a second. And let's focus not so much on who we're supposed to be listening to, but how we're supposed to be listening. Whoever walks with the wise. That's not a passing conversation. That's not a couple minutes interaction standing in line someplace. That's not a quick social media post, right? My social media post is full of other people's wisdom. I don't know most of them. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise. 15 years ago, I met who would become two of my best friends in my life, Alex and TJ. Did not know at the time that we would become best friends. In fact, at the time, I was fairly convinced the relationship was going to be a bit lopsided only because I'm older. And not like a couple of years older. This isn't like the sibling thing, like I'm a year older than you, so obviously I know 10 times more than you do, little brother. But I mean, I've got a decade on one of them, and I've got 7 years on the other. And so for a stretch, because I thought I was right, fool, for a stretch, I thought this is going to be a bit of a one-sided relationship. I'll pour in, and this will be fun. And over 15 years, we have literally walked together. Not just we've been connected for a long period of time, but every Wednesday morning at 6:30, I drive from Percival, one drives from Ashburn, and one drives from Leesburg to a little bit farther away in Leesburg. And we walk for 3 miles, and we talk. We used to run, but I'm not in that kind of shape anymore. But we walk, and we talk a little bit about life. How's work? How's the family? But we intentionally carve out extended time in this hour to hour and 15 minutes that we do every Wednesday to ask the question. And for some of you, you may not even know what this question means that I'm about to tell you, but for us, it's become an invitation to truly experience the wisdom that each one of us possesses, but also the wisdom that God is showing us. And it's this question: how's your inner man? How's your inner life? How's your life with God? What is God showing you lately? What is he bringing up? What is he surfacing? What are you walking through with him that you feel like on my own, I have no idea how to deal with this, but he's showing me things about myself? Every week. Every week. For at least the last 7 years, we've walked. I'm reasonable with math, but I can't do that math in my head real quick to figure out how many actual miles we've walked together. And I am changed as a result. Because we make the time to not just share wisdom in a text, but to walk with each other. And so it begs the question, who are you allowing to shape your inner world? And are you listening? And are you putting it into practice? Are you walking? Or fool? Now, I know for some of us this becomes deeply challenging because, let's be honest, people are messy. People are messy, they're broken, they're jacked up. They have their past, they have their preferences, they have their idiosyncrasies, they have their team allegiances, their political preferences, their whatever it is, and it's messy. And that's absolutely the case with these two guys that I've spent this time with. And so I bring you to one more truth from Proverbs, and honestly, I've been waiting a long, long time to share this proverb from this space, because you don't get to say this word real often in church. Proverbs 14:4. Where there are no oxen, the manger is clean, but abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. You're like, John, there's not a single word in there that should get you this excited. It's the word that's not there, but it's the word that's implied. Where there are no oxen, the manger is clean. What makes a manger messy when there's an ox in it? There it is. There it is. My friends, the day has come. We get to talk about poop in church. I'm not sure what to do with that amen, but I'm going to take it. Where there are no oxen, the manger stays clean, but it takes a strong ox for a large harvest. An abundance of crops comes by the strength of the ox. In other words, friends, if you want the abundance, you have to shovel some poop. And that wisdom is universal across categories in your life, but especially in this case of walking with the wise, because the wise are not without their issues. The wise are not perfect. The wise have wisdom. But just because they're wise doesn't mean walking with them is going to be easy. We are going to have to learn to shovel some relational poop if we truly want the abundance that comes from walking together. You are made for life in close community. You are made for life in close community. And that's not acquaintances. That's not casual friendships. That's not even just Bible study. You are made for transformational community. You are made for connections that help you become who God is inviting you to become. Our men's ministry uses the proverb from Proverbs 27:17. This will not appear on the screen. But as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. It doesn't say, as long as you have two pieces of iron, just, if you have them sitting in your shop or on the bench, they'll end up sharpening each other. Right? It requires close contact. It requires abrasive contact. It requires uncomfortable contact. It requires shoveling some poop, if I can mix my proverbs here. And that's the life you're made for. If you go to the tab on our website at cfcwire.org and you click on the groups tab, before you can even get to the list of groups that are there, and we've got, 30 or 40 groups, you first have to pass a page where we talk about how we think about community here at CFC. And it very specifically uses the phrase transformational community, not just acquaintances, not just Bible studies, but the kinds of people that you allow to get abrasively close in your life. That does not mean you be abrasive people. Just a disclaimer there. That does not mean you be abrasive people. But that means you allow your life to come in close enough contact with someone else's life who's trying to walk with God, that the places in you that God is working on are surfaced and benefit from the contact with others. And sometimes that happens accidentally, but sometimes that means we choose it. And so as I walk with my two friends, Alex and TJ, there are times where I say, tell me what you see that I'm not seeing. Because I know you do. Because I see it in you. And that doesn't mean I become abrasive and be like, guys, it's good to see you, 6:30 in the morning. Let me tell you all the things I've been thinking about you this last week that you have a problem with. That's not that's not kind. But it does mean I should be willing to invite the people in my life to say, there's some stuff. There's some stuff, and it feels like this is what God is surfacing now. You are made to walk not just with friends, but with mentors and guides. And that doesn't just mean old people, older than you, because I just mentioned these two friends are both younger than me, and yet they have profound wisdom to offer in my life. These aren't just people that have learned more information than I have, though sometimes that's helpful. But ultimately, if you're looking for mentors and guides, here's a really helpful thing to look for. You seem to know God in a way that I don't. And it has me curious. I would like to know God the way that you seem to. Not, I would like to know about God the way that you do. That's information. But you seem to know God in a way that I don't, and I would like to. How do we know who makes a good guide, a good mentor? Well, Jesus answers the question. Matthew 7, he's talking about false guides, false mentors, false teachers, false prophets. And he says, you know how you tell the difference? You know them by their fruit. You know them by their fruit. And he is very specifically not saying you will know them. You will know who the good mentor and the good guide are because they will be prosperous, and they will be healthy. But rather, he highlights what Paul will eventually talk about in Galatians, that the fruit of those who know God deeply and are walking with him demonstrate, exude the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control. I think that was 9. I'm not sure. Right? That's who you're looking for. That's who you're looking for. People that know God and don't just seem to have their life together from the outside, but have a life that exudes those things. Not that they're white-knuckling to manifest them, which you won't always know unless you walk with them. But if you walk with them, you will come to realize if these things come authentically. And if they do, that's who you want. That's the person that has wisdom that will help you grow. But it's so tempting if we're being honest. I mean, this is still part of my foolishness. There's a part of me that wants to walk with people whose lives seem to promise comfort and ease. Right? You seem to know the God that just seems to make everything work in your life. Can I know God that way too? Because that'd be great for me. Do you honestly look at the entirety of Paul's life and go, I want to walk with that guy? You're like, yeah, guy's super influential in the church. He's got a lot of people that seem to be listening to him. Incredibly productive, prolific writer, says all kinds of smart things, so much so that even some of the other disciples are like, yeah, we don't always get Paul. But he's also getting shipwrecked. He's starving, bitten by snakes at different points. beaten, stoned, arrested, imprisoned for long periods of time. Do you really want to walk with that guy? Because it seems like if you walked with him, he might lead you into those same places that he's going. And it's like, can you just send me that in a text? Do you really look at Jesus' life and want to walk with him? Again, God says profound things on a daily basis. It does incredible things, multiplying food, healing people, raising the dead. And you go, yeah, I want that. That looks amazing. Jesus, sign me up. But he also fasts in the wilderness for 40 days. He also suffers betrayal after betrayal after betrayal after betrayal. And ultimately, willingly lays down his life for people that don't even like him. Is that really someone you want to walk with? And I know, it's Jesus. So the answer is yes, we're in church. I get that. But right, be honest about who I typically look to want to walk with. Do I want people whose lives look like Paul's or Jesus? Or do I find myself aligning with the person whose life just seems perfect? Because if I walk with them, maybe that's what would happen to my life. And that's really, at the end of the day, what I want. That approach is foolishness. And that will bring harm to me and to anyone that tries to walk with me. Because Jesus was upfront about this. As he's saying farewell to his disciples, he says, in this life, you will have trouble. It's a guarantee. And if you walk with me, it's actually going to get worse. And so that means I'm not looking for someone who has a life that looks all perfect from the outside. Actually, I'm looking for someone who is living a transformed life in the midst of difficulty. That is where I will truly find wisdom. And here at CFC, we're not saying we have it all together, but we actually invite you into mentor relationships. We have guides available. You've probably seen it in the bulletin at different times throughout the year. Our women's ministry has something called Heart to Heart. It is a structured, intentional women's mentoring and discipleship program. Get in touch. Our Band of Brothers, our men's ministry, doesn't have anything that's specifically structured, but it's no less transformational. We're happy to help you find a guy to walk with. But you need to walk with people who have learned how to shovel some poop while keeping their eyes fixed on Jesus, and are walking the life that Jesus himself said he was walking. You heard Brian mention it earlier. Jesus' life was laser focused on love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Find someone who's moving in that direction, who is loving their neighbor as they love themselves. Find someone who's doing that and walk with them. Jesus came out of the wilderness and picked up the scroll of Isaiah and said, this is why the Messiah came, to bind up the brokenhearted and set the captive free. Find someone who's walking that way and walk with them. Jesus said, I've come that you might have life and have it abundantly. Find someone who seems to be experiencing the abundant life with God, not because everything's perfect, but because they have learned how to live the abundant life in the midst of a life that guarantees trouble. And don't just find those people. Become those people. Become those people. I get to do a few different things here at the church. One of them is I get to oversee our freedom ministry. And our Freedom Ministry gets to do a few different things. It includes all of our different kinds of prayer teams. We have a few. It also includes our encounter conferences. And our encounter conferences are the places where we help people learn to discern how God is communicating specifically and uniquely to them in their life, in their context, in the midst of trouble. Our next encounter conference is coming up September 25th and 26th. It's a Friday evening and then most of a Saturday. And the goal of that weekend is to help you better learn to discern what God is saying to you, what he's showing you, what he's communicating to you in the midst of your life, in the midst of the trouble, so that you're not trying to get through your life based on your own wisdom. But as part of our Freedom Ministry, we also have a prayer team, and that prayer team is available out in the lobby 2 Sundays a month. And they would love for the opportunity. They would love for you to give them the opportunity to pray with you. Not because they have special powers. Believe me, if they did, I would not tell anybody about them, and I would just use them myself all the time. Right? They don't have special powers. They don't have a special line to God where God loves them more than he loves everybody else. They're not an intermediary that you have to go through, but they are people with wisdom that have learned to walk with God through their own story, that have learned how to recognize what he's doing in the midst of the trouble, and are willing to share the fruit of that wisdom to help you discover that connection, to help you become the person that can then help others. And so if today feels like the day where it would be beneficial for you to have someone to pray with you, be out in the lobby after the service, standing by the cross, wearing lanyards. See what they have for you. See what God has for you today as you invite others into your life. But friends, today's message is not only about find people, build a network. Build a network and rely on those people. Outsource your needs and have them fill it. Because friends, you are also made to walk with God. You are made to walk with God in a way that allows you to receive his wisdom and guidance directly, that allows you to receive his comfort directly, that allows you to receive his correction and his love and his life directly. I know so often in my life I have been blessed with the gift of people through whom I experience the love and the comfort and the direction and the correction of God. But God is not a God who is far off. He is a God who has come close already. Heaven and earth, moved heaven to earth to come close, to be with us so that you could walk with him. He came close so that you could be close. But as he told Adam and Eve in the garden, as they walked with him in the cool of the day, before Eve even showed up, God told Adam, Adam, it's not good for you to be alone. I am going to make an Ezer Kenegdo, a life saver, suitable for you, someone who comes through for you, because it's not good for you to be alone. And Adam, by the way, you get me too. You are made for both. You are made to walk with God and you are made to walk with others. And so your life with God requires both. Your life with God requires community. And you can't make community work without God. There's too much poop to be shoveled. But look at the beauty that existed in the garden before the fruit was eaten. Perfect relationship with God. Perfect relationship with each other. All of the blessings of communion with each other and communion with God. And now fast forward to the end, to Revelation. Every tribe and tongue unified, living together. No more sorrow, no more pain, no more misunderstanding. I don't know about the actual poop in heaven, but there is no more relational poop to be shoveled in heaven. and God dwells with mankind. The perfection of relationship is restored, and that's what we are living towards. We're not waiting for it to arrive. We are pursuing it. And so we find those that are walking with God, and we learn to walk with them. We find those that have learned to walk with God in the midst of trouble, and we learn to walk with them in the midst of trouble. We learn to walk with God in the midst of trouble. You're not meant to go alone. You can't do this life without finding and walking with others who are wise. And you can't do this life without walking with God. And so, Father, first and foremost, I ask purely for myself. I'm not praying anybody else's prayer for them. But God, would you expose the places in me that still cling to foolishness, that still cling to self-sufficiency, that still cling to self-righteousness and self-protection, the places that have feared walking with others because of what they might see or what they might think or what they might say, because of what it might require me to give up. God, would you expose those places in me again today? And would you show me what you have for me so that I can walk with those that you have brought into my life, and so that I can walk with you. Love you, God. Thank you.